It's Closing Time is an engaging and informative conversation between Rent Spree CEO Michael Lucarelli and some of the most accomplished and important voices in the real estate industry. This podcast is brought to you by Rent Spree, the easy-to-use platform that optimizes every aspect of your rental process.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Closing Time. I am your host, Michael Lucarelli, and I've got with me my fantastic co-host and one of your favorite people in the industry, Bill Andrews. Bill, why don't you say hi, introduce yourself, and also, if you don't mind, introducing us to the very, very special guest that we have with us today.
Well, today I will be referred to as Bill Andrews Jr. because our guest for the day is the man, the myth, the legend, and also my father, Bill Andrews as well. We're going to refer to him as Bill Andrews Sr. That's outside the norm, but it's a little confusing with two Bills here. We have the same name. So Bill, my dad, he spent time at really almost every major company within the industry over the last, 25 years or so. Started at Rapatoni, TerraSoft, CoreLogic,
yes.
Remine, Black Knight, Zillow. If there's any I'm missing, which I'm sure there are, go ahead and fill in the blanks there. But he's also a mentor, most recently for NAR Reach Canada, and he's been doing some consulting for just different companies here and there, and I'll let him speak about those in just a second. But yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. And why don't you start it off by just telling us kind of how you got started in the industry? What was your kind of intro into the MLS world from your original sales role?
Yep. Actually, I tripped into the whole thing. It was a mistake. I had left. Truly, it was. I had left. I started early in the cell phone business when there weren't even handheld portables, and it was a great business. It was awesome to be in. We had nothing but every day I'd wake up, I had more work than I could possibly do, and it was a lot of fun, and we made a lot of money. But at a point when I used to say that when you bought a big gulp, you got a phone, and I thought, well, that's time to get out of it. And so I did, and I originally started with, I saw iPix virtual tours, and I thought, wow, I love that technology, and I want to kind of move into that corridor of business. And so I did. It was a wild, crazy ride. It was like a cult. There was a company called Bamboo that bought iPix virtual tours, and then it went crazy from there. I decided again I needed to move quickly, and I actually did. I moved to a division that took care of all the hotels and resorts and did the virtual tours for those. And what happened was from there when things degraded, and again that business, it lasted for a little while, and then it kind of tapered off. I happened to find, I actually was the person that sold the very first instance of what we call a smartphone today, an MLS on a smartphone. And that was fascinating because I took that position, and I was managing a team of sales reps. But we had the entire country to choose from, and I had a certain area which was part of California, Southern California. I don't think they got the message on the blower, but we'll just kind of let that move on there. And so what happened was, at that point, I had sales reps that worked for me. It never fails, right? And we actually did really well. I actually sold the very first instance of that phone, which was you had a modem that you had to charge, and then you had a Palm Pilot you had to charge. Put the two together, and the first thing I saw in there was Realtor.com, and I thought, perfect, I'll sell this to the agents. They looked at it and they laughed basically and said, that's not the MLS. I didn't understand because to me it looked like it was the same. And so learning that business and learning how that happened, again, pushed me by mistake into Rapatoni. And Rapatoni had just started their MLS software, and it was one of the first internet-based softwares out there. And so that is what really started this whole thing. My movement into there, Andy saying, hey, I like that product you have, but why don't you come to work for me instead? It wasn't going to get funded. And from there, it went straight into everything I've done since. And the amazing part about that role was I was hired for sales, but because it was so new to everyone, I would have a weekly meeting with all the developers. So I really had a say-so in what we were going to do moving forward. And it was really a good time for us because we would all gather in a conference room and we would see what's out there and decide the direction we wanted, what the product needed to look like. And that was done on a weekly basis. And in doing that, we actually, I think at one point we were the number one MLS software, competing at the time with First American and a couple others out there. But from there, it just went nothing but up. And I actually hired Matt, as you guys know, Matt Epstein, who's now with FBS, at that position. And we had a lot of fun on the road, had a lot of fun winning, and had a lot of great stories, which we won't tell today. But, yeah, and then from there, it went from Rapatoni to TerraSoft. And I worked with Brian and Sean over there with the two founders. And that was a hugely successful venture. And we got bought by Black Knight, or CoreLogic, I'm sorry. And then CoreLogic, of course, from there I took a position with Zillow, and then Remind and Black Knight, and then here I am today. So it looks like I've had a lot of jobs, but they all actually just kind of flowed from one to the other.
Yep. I mean, I think it was 2017, maybe even 2018, so it's still fresh, where I kind of joined this industry, obviously because of you. But I remember the very first event that I went to, it was in San Francisco. I think it was at Inman. And the whole thing was just brand new to me. I had no clue about anything MLS or real estate in general. I wasn't much of a tech person, just in general. I still am not really. But I remember we got off the plane, we were taking the Uber to the hotel, and we were walking, and I couldn't tell you who it was, but someone was shouting out the window like, "Hey, Bill!" And I just thought, like, man, everybody knows my dad in this industry. Like, he is so well known. People on the side of the street just like, "Hey, Bill, how you doing?" Just in a brand new city in San Francisco. So, and that's still how it is. I mean, every event.
Well, as you can see, yeah, you can see it. It's a big, small industry, or small, big industry. I don't know how you'd say it. But I was also fortunate because at Rapatoni, I also worked with every association in the country. So I was not only working with the MLSs, but the associations. So the level at which you get to know people from the association side is very different than the MLS side. And the combination of those two are really just about everyone in the industry. And so I had that base to start with. But also it was national sales, so I moved around a lot. And I like to say I was even good friends with my competitors. At the time when I was competing against CoreLogic and those guys, I mean, we still could talk to each other. There was no issues with each other. We just figured whoever had the best software for them and whoever did the best job would win. And we kind of remained friends at the end of the day, which you kind of have to do in this industry, because the person that you're battling might be working shoulder to shoulder with them, or the company that you competed against might be the company that owns you tomorrow. And that has been the case already a few times. So I've kind of learned how to just make sure that you do the best job you can for your customers. Always be real straight with everybody, because you're going to see them around a few times, no matter where you are. And you want to make sure that when they do see you, you've never left them other than thinking that whatever you had to say was either true, straight, or good for them. And if you can't do that, move on. That's always been my motto.
And I remember early on, Bill joined us in Renspree's life cycle, and just kind of speaking to the close-knit community that you find within this industry. Bill came on. Obviously, he was amazing to come and join our team. But one of the things that I always remembered from back then was how you were generous with your time and support for us back then too. And you provided amazing words of encouragement, words of advice to us. And this was invaluable. And I think a lot of the people in this industry, we have to really appreciate the shoulders that we're standing on from the people that have come before us. Everyone's just so helpful and so welcoming. And you were one of those figures to me and for Renspree. I'm wondering, was there anyone in your life cycle when you came through that stood out as maybe a mentor or someone that provided support for you when you were maybe relatively newer in the industry?
Well, that's really interesting, because I started in 2000, and it was still a reasonably closed industry back then comparatively to what it is now. And when I say that, it's because just a quick story. I'll never forget, I was new at Rapatoni. I was new in the sales. I won't say the name of the executive, but it was an account that we had, and they were sitting at our table. And it was kind of a hostile environment for everybody. I don't know why. There was a lot of issues there. As the first time I ever walked over to a customer and said, "Hey, I just want to ask you, why does there seem to be some issues here between yourself and the company?" And he actually looked at me wide-eyed and said, "That's kind of amazing you asked me that, but I'd like to tell you why." And we talked about it. And the reason I brought that story up was I realized that when I first joined, people would talk about something someone said 5 years ago and why they wouldn't work with them or talk to them. And I realized, okay, if people are remembering that long something negative, I'm going to shut my mouth for the first year and I'm going to listen more than I talk, which I did. I think when I think of people that really helped me a lot when I first came into this industry, there were two people, and it was Andy Rapatoni, who gave me the full runway and said, go get it, we'll support you, whatever it is you need to do, we're here to do that. And he was a man of his word doing that. And also Kevin Wolf, who I traveled with and who was in the business with me, who'd been in the association side with what they call Magic, the association software, for many years. But traveling with Kevin, he was also well known, so it was kind of ushered in nicely. And Kevin is the kind of guy who had the type of sense of humor that no matter what happened, good, bad, or indifferent, it was a pleasure to be around him and to travel with him. And he helped me a lot. So any errors that would have happened in maybe that first year were really, they were just easy because of the runway I was given with Andy and the companionship with Kevin. So those two were probably the most instrumental. We didn't get a chance back then to deal with too many people outside of our company. That happened later on as we kind of grew. At the beginning, it was pretty much all-out warfare in terms of people trying to win multiple listing services, especially when it was an internet-based system.
Well, let's cut maybe to today. So you have your own consulting business. You said that you were going to retire, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. You technically are retired, but you are currently working for a few different companies. You have contracts with, well, I'll let you speak for them.
Yeah, well, when I left Black Knight last year, I left in October after NAR. I was just kind of done working for the MLS side of things and only the MLS side of things. I guess I just done so many demos over the years and spoken about it to such a degree that I didn't want to do it anymore. I always said it's like doing a play for 25 years. You know every word you need to say, but you still need to say it with meaning and with compassion. And I just felt that I'd kind of run the gamut of doing all that. So I wanted to do different things, still in technology, which is what drove me to what I do now. So I'm pretty selective about who I work for, only because I want to make sure I add a lot of value. And so I don't take a lot of consulting jobs if I don't think I can really be a huge value to them out the gate. And I don't want to be on the sales side of things, so I'm only consulting in terms of what I think their product should look like or be and who might need that product, and moving in that direction. So Lundy was one, when I started speaking with Justin, I was actually introduced to him by, I think it was Rick or you, Bill, at the airport in San Diego. We were traveling somewhere. But as we talked more, his product was moving more into the realm of MLS, and so it was kind of a natural. Plus, I have a lot of fun working with Justin and his whole crew, and it's a good environment. It's a product that I'm really proud of what we're doing, and I think it's going to be a real game changer. And I also took up a position with House Canary and working with them really on the data licensing side and some of the difficulties there for brokers that aren't your standard broker and want to find, their niche, and they deserve it to find their niche. And sometimes MLSs don't quite understand how that side of the business does their business and makes their money. And they add the same type of value that other brokers do, in just a different way. In House Canaries, it's mainly with valuations and helping transparency in those things. Lundy is really with creating a new way of using technology to search for things, to find things. It's almost like 3D search, because sometimes you can't type what you want or enter a number for what you want. It has to be a vocal request for something that you're searching for in terms of a home or a lifestyle in a neighborhood. And that's really cool. I love that aspect. And I also love the support aspect that we're doing now, where you can provide a tool so that MLSs can better serve their members by using that technology and making calls faster and more accurate in terms of Q&A for products and for rules and regulations. So it's covering the gamut of everything we do, and in some way, it's touching a lot of people in a very meaningful way, especially with Lundy's. Nothing but fun moving forward with that one. I also
Yeah,
have
no,
a few
Lundy's
other
been
small
impressive
projects
too.
I'm doing. Yeah, and I'm doing some work for Hawaii Information Services right now, and that's a lot of fun because they're also good friends, and so we have some new things we want to do with their MLS, and finding new ways to implement things that maybe would benefit them as well.
Well, you've spent
Yeah,
many
no, I remember
years.
when I saw one. I got to see one of the first demos. Go for it, Bill.
Oh, I was just going to say, and pardon me if there's a little delay here, but I think a great question for you is you've spent many years on the road. And if anybody knows my dad, they know that he is a man of restaurant recommendations. In every city,
Yeah, for
in
sure.
every state, triple D, diners, drive-ins, and whatever it is, but you have a recommendation literally everywhere we go. So I want to hear maybe just one of your top recommendations anywhere in the
Oh, that's a
country.
hard one.
I know that you're a big fan
That's a
of
hard one.
somewhere specifically in DC over here. I'm in Northern Virginia in the DC area.
Yeah, I think DC is probably one of the top cities for restaurants. It has been for many years. The one thing I would say about that's been a lot of fun is, yeah, the Triple D is kind of fun. I like to go to those for lunch or choose those places that are more of a diner or drive-in, exactly what they are, but some amazing food, some amazing times. And I usually, because if anyone watches that show and knows Guy Fieri, I always just tell him, give me whatever he had. That's usually the best thing in the house or their specialty. But the one thing about dinners in this industry, which has really been a lot of fun, is because it's your chance to take customers out and not beat them over the head about business or talk about things that are purely, it's really a chance to get to know them and for them to get to know you. And it's a unique opportunity we have because everybody loves to break bread, have dinner with each other, and good conversation. And it has always been my favorite thing to do, to bring different people in groups together, and they meet each other as well. So you help to usher in new relationships with people that have known a name but have not known that person. And it is really the greatest time I've had. I've had some hilarious things that have happened too. I will never forget. I was working for Zillow at the time. And when Zillow books things, we were in Las Vegas, they will ask you to pick one of the restaurants that they've already made reservations at, and they'll ask you to take 15 to 20 people. So the first thing is trying to get through a casino with 15 to 20 people is literally the term herding cats. You're
Yeah.
constantly trying to pull someone back in. They stop to talk to somebody they see, they stop to make a bet, all kinds of things. But we get to this restaurant, and I think it was called an Asian fusion restaurant of all kinds. So I ordered a dish that I typically order somewhere, and it's fairly common. I can't remember what it was at the time. But it was maybe, I wish I'd taken a picture because when they brought the appetizer, they brought everyone an individual plate. And so here's 20 people looking at a plate in front of them, and it looked literally like an ostrich just took a crap right on the plate. And nobody knew how to react because they were all trying to be polite, but the look of horror on their faces were, there's this thing in front of me that it's exactly what it looked like. I'm not sure what to do with it or even how to approach it. And so, that was an opportunity. I just started laughing and said, look, don't feel like you have to eat this because I'm going to try it for everybody and I'll see how it is. Turned out it was pretty good, but it was one of those moments. I mean, whoever was at dinner that night never forgot about it. So it's always, instead of something that would normally have been embarrassing or problematic, really turned into a great opportunity to always laugh about it and have, that memory for all of us. And I wish I could have taken a picture of the look on their faces. But, and I don't even know the name of that restaurant, but give me a little time. I mean, there's hundreds of restaurants. Some of them were in DC, New York, mainly, and a couple in Boston. Yeah, it's been Cafe de Art is one that comes to mind over in New York on 7th Street, and of course DC is full of some of the most famous restaurants that we've all been to every year that we go there. So give me a little time to think about that one, Bill.
Well, I've heard them all from you already.
And so I'd love to learn a little bit more from you, what you're seeing in the industry now. I think there's just so many changes, and that's the one thing that's been constant now. And I just think for our audience here that a lot of MLS folks, we have vendors that listen in as well. And boy, like every day it just seems like there's a new headline that comes out, or there's some surprise that pops up, or some settlement that's being announced. And it's very challenging now to sort of grapple with that, whether you're on the vendor side or the MLS side. And I'd love to hear from someone like you who has the benefit of all this wealth of experience. How do you think about really guiding the companies that you're consulting through these phases? And what are you kind of looking out for? And what's kind of your advice that you're giving these days to grapple with all of it?
Well, I think the biggest change right now, and one of the biggest things affecting everyone, is the MLS used to be a pretty safe place to be, and they owned the data, they had the data from the brokers, and it was a very closed environment. And to get in that environment was really tough. And so you had to be approved as a vendor. You had to pretty much have a product that served everybody. But as we've seen, as time has gone on, even with this DOJ lawsuit, the NAR, you now have, you're grappling with problems for buyer's agents and how they bring their value and some of the value that they add and why a consumer would choose one over another. And so that has caused the MLSs a lot of pain in thinking through how they're going to help those members, because it's an industry where you really help yourself, right? But the MLS has been there to kind of usher the deal through so that when a listing agent got the listing, everyone got paid properly, everything was distributed, you got your name on the record of sale, either selling or buying side. So all those things added to your resume, so to speak, and to your income. And so that's caused a lot of issue, and I anticipate more coming. I don't know if you listen to Saul Klein. I just listened today, and I actually sent it to you, Bill. Saul really broke it down in a way that many don't. He got right to the meat of the problem with the showing agreement and with the buyer's agreement and where the DOJ is coming in. So that's one thing that's still out there, and it's not settled. The other is there's a lot of different ways the data is now moving to serve for transparency and to serve vendors that are serving brokers and agents, not just the MLS anymore. And MLSs are grappling with how to approve that data without it moving into a channel that really starts to destroy the broker relationship with the agents, with the consumers. And an example of that is I'm doing some work right now investigating data licensing and how what's permissible and why is it permissible in one MLS and not in another. So we not only have an industry where you might have a request, and if you ask it of 19 people, there could be 19 different opinions based on what's allowable and how much that's going to be for that data. So it's a real struggle for everyone. It's not a real black and white issue. There are rules and regulations around the data, but it's how people perceive it or how people use it to help the broker. The broker owns it in the end. So that's where all the struggle's been. And I know MLSs are trying to find ways to stay relevant. Here's the other problem. People don't understand that the industry, I've always said, what software you get is the greatest deal there is because it's quality software. Think about what the MLS does. They make sure that everything is clean data, that it's proper, that it's accurate. They make sure that it's going to the right people. And so when they give it to somebody, it's kind of like, hey, we washed all the laundry, we took all the stains out, we did everything to it, and you get to have it, and here you go. So there's a value to that they see. And if we're going to be sending that data out, we've actually been a good steward of it, and we've been beneficial for the brokers and for the consumers and for the people that need that data. So they're trying to find how do they stay relevant in terms of income. Now, you can only charge someone so much to be an MLS member, and that could only go up by small percentages. You can't double it, triple it. You can't do that. People won't be able to afford it. We still have an industry where a majority of the people in there are doing a few sales or no sales. And so when they are trying to find relevancy right now, everybody wants the data. Everybody wants to make money from that data. Everybody wants to be a vendor with a new idea for that data. And a lot of that's happening outside the MLS. And so the MLS is trying to figure out How do we keep that data pure and clean and within the rights of who's using it, and not thwart this new wave of business coming in? We have to be part of it, and we have to allow things to blossom, because the MLS is changing. And that all really started changing a lot when companies like Zillow started being able to get a hold of all the data. And as you can see, it's all moved on. So there's a lot of places for people to see data and homes now. And I think the really important piece is just take 20 years. In 20 years, 24 years ago, you didn't have the ability to find a home. You had to call a realtor. You had to call an agent. You had to call a broker. Because the very first thing that had to happen when you wanted to find a home was you either had to look for signs on lawns, or you had to have someone send you homes. You could not go online and find them, or you'd have to look at a newspaper. And so imagine a world where that's the first thing that has to happen, was your interaction with someone that has the data is now working with you, which makes it a natural partnership, as opposed to consumers that can now look in 100 places for homes and for data. And now, if you are a broker or an agent, you might be the third or fourth or fifth thing that they actually do down the line, because they've already maybe found their house, or found the neighborhood that they want, or already researched the school they want their kid to go to. Those were all things that the realtor used to provide, right? So as we move down the line, this is where people are trying to stay relevant, be relevant, and people are still trying to find their place. That's where I see the market right now. And there are some very sweeping things that could happen in terms of someone buying a home and what that process looks like. And I won't really go into that, because that's more of a conversation. And I want to be careful for you say in private, because it's a worrisome thing for a lot of people. Where's this business going, and who will control it eventually, right? We see a lot of mega corporations out there, and everybody wants real estate data because it tells them where people are going and what people are doing. Another long answer, but it's what I look at every day. It's how I view the market. How are people going to be relevant, and where's all the data going, and what are they doing with that data?
Well, I think that's a great answer. I think that's true, and something to consider for every agent. I mean, when I purchased my house, I was the one who told the agent, hey, I want to set up a showing for this house in particular. That was a major part of the realtor's job, not even that long ago, was to find the homes for consumers, and now they're finding homes themselves. And the main job for realtors is, all the paperwork and everything behind the scenes. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and the house that you grew up in, Billy, and Killane. So we found that house, and the way we found that house was, it looked vacant, but it was all kind of well kept. The lawns were all mowed. Turns out that all the neighbors didn't want that house to look bad, so they all mowed the lawn and took care of the house. But it was vacant. It was foreclosed on. And your mom found the house, so Lori found the house, and we contacted an agent. But skip to the next few homes I've bought. I've found them all. And it's because you realize that at the end of the day, every agent, buyers are liars. I might have told somebody, I'll only look at this type of home. Then I see another home and think, well, that's pretty nice. Well, that's always the blind side part. That's where they said, you told me you only wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single story. Now you're buying a 2-story. But that's how we are as consumers. And that's why we're the best people to actually find the house, if that's possible. And I think where agents do add the value today is understanding that, and then helping us channel ourselves into the right pricing, make sure we understand everything about that neighborhood or everything associated with the house, and how to get through the process with the least amount of pain, right? And pay the best that you can. And I think that's really where the value is today. I think finding the house for consumers is pretty low on the list. That's my opinion, because we all have that opportunity to find the homes on our own. And I think I know, Billy, you found the house on your own. I found the house in Tennessee on my own. I found the house here in San Diego on my own. And I could tell that story for so many people. But it's what did the agent do after that that really is the value proposition, right?
So, yeah, I think really appreciative of your time today, Bill, and you've been so generous with that. I think for me, I just have maybe one more question to touch on, but I know that in your previous life, pre-real estate, you had a lot of celebrity run-ins from time to time when you were over in LA, and
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if anyone stands out to you. I know Bill told me about a couple of these stories, like selling when you're doing with the mobile phones and stuff like that. Anyone stand
Yeah.
out to you in particular?
That was a hell of a lot of fun. So at the time I was with AirTouch Cellular, and as that business was maturing, I happened to find out that Baywatch was filming on the beach all the time, and they had, if you imagine the set of Baywatch, you have all the actors and actresses, but the amount of support people, I don't think people have an idea. The electricians, the sound people, excuse me, the people that pick up the trash. I mean, it's a huge group of people, and Baywatch happened to be all independent owner contractors that worked on that set. And I found out that they had no coverage. They were using a competing service on the beach. So I brought down a bunch of what we called loaner phones. Loaner phones were phones you could use for free. And at the time, it was very expensive. You had to buy a package that was $500, $400 a month for unlimited, up to 300 minutes or 400 minutes. But in any case, it turned out that we had pretty good coverage there. So I sold the entire Baywatch account, actors, actresses, Pamela Anderson, David Hasselhoff, the whole group. And I would actually go once or twice a week there. And then I'd also meet all the guest stars. I met the Beach Boys, who did a stint there, and was invited to that. And it was the best job in the world because I would go there, handle phones during the day, sell to what we called a corporate account, surf at noon with the sound guy and one of the electricians, and then go back to work and finish my day there. And they had a food trailer there that served halibut, only the best foods. I mean, if you had a steak, it was a ribeye. That was all for free, part of the daily there. I would also bring some MLS executives over there and introduce them to the crew when I got out of there. But it was one of those unique moments in time which led me to other TV shows. There was another show called Pacific Blue about bike cops on the beach, and I also did some work at Universal Studios. And so, yeah, there's some actually really great stories associated with that, and we could go on for a long time. I think one of the funnier ones was at the time there was always paparazzi trying to get into the set there to take pictures of Pamela and other people. And I happened to find this one German guy who was underneath one of the girls' trailers with a camera, and he was trying to get pictures. So it was the whole scene of trying to get someone from security over there fast enough, and we had to corral him and actually chase him down. But that was daily on that set. And you couldn't ask for better working conditions. We'd be on Will Rogers State Beach all day, or over at Malibu, or over at Lucarelli.
Was it Zuma also a little bit?
Very little at Zuma. We'd be down the road. Leo Carrillo was one of the good spots right there. And then mostly Will Rogers State Beach, because they had a setup over there. It looked like a real lifeguard tower. But it was all Baywatch. And yeah, that was one. I mean, I did a lot of different accounts with that and met a lot of industry people doing that. And yeah, that was a good 6-7 year stint that was really a lot of fun. I don't think you can have more fun at a job. So
Hang out at the beach and surf and meet celebrities.
That's amazing.
yeah, that's pretty much the life, right?
Jeez.
It was one of those snapshots of a moment in time when that technology was also changing the way we live and the way we do business. And it was almost every 6 months you'd see sweeping changes in how society behaved, really, because you went from the days where someone would pick up a phone and the first thing they do was feel how comfortable it was in their ear, like trying to put, how comfortable is this phone? And I used to laugh because I think now if you give someone a rock and it works well and it's, they'll put the rock to their head. They don't care anymore. So you see those behaviors, which were so important in the beginning, and things like that, down to just other types of other things that are more important, in terms of now, of course, it's social media, it's apps, it's being able to access airline tickets. Just think how much that's changed our industry. And to have been part of that when it came in was just fantastic and a lot of fun, and maybe one of the best jobs I've ever had.
That sounds amazing. And Bill, before we finish up here, any Do you want to share how people can get into contact with you if maybe someone wants to reach out?
I'm on LinkedIn, and also I think all my contact information is on there. I use my work email, which is bill.andrewsconsulting@gmail. That's probably the best way to reach me. And
Sounds great.
Yeah, and or LinkedIn, and I usually respond to both.
And are you going to any conferences in the next couple months? Anything that's for sure yet?
I think I'll probably, going forward, I'll probably only do CMLS and mid-years anymore. It's not really necessary I travel like I used to, where I used to have to be in front of a lot of people and stay in touch. I'm trying to move slowly to the back where I'm only working with certain companies and certain things. And so, I think those will be my two standards, just the every May in DC and then wherever CMLS is.
We'll see you there.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, this is closing time for this particular episode, and I want to thank my amazing co-host, Bill, and also our amazing guest, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as a reminder to all of our listeners, don't forget to follow Renspree. You can find us on all social platforms on @Renspree. Don't forget to visit our website, renspree.com, to check out more about what we have to offer. Thank you so much to everyone for listening, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Bill. And I just want to say you guys have done an amazing job in the industry with what you bring to it and your success. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
All right.